So I've been interviewing customers on some of the environments dashboard work that I've created from like a future facing scope, and people are very excited to be able to add more environments and projects to the dashboard. Like I seriously had somebody, they were in their co-working space and they leaned over to another person and they said they're going to add more tiles to it. So they're very pumped about that. That's really exciting. But I did also learn from other users that uh, the jobs to be done they're looking to accomplish when they go to the environments dashboard page are not executable. And there actually isn't a place in GitLab that they can easily do this. So here's a really great workflow. I have 12 projects that are all contributing to the same release pipeline. So it's like a really heavily microserviced application. And each of these are sharing the same target environment in AWS. If they were to do this in GitLab today, they would have 12 separate production tiles on the dashboard. And we have a couple of issues that are going to be about feeding into the same project. But I wanted to share this with you all because I was actually able to see like a user go into, and I was unable to record the actual meeting, but I saw a user go into the AWS console and check about like, you know, an active deployment has happened in each of these, from each of these projects in the environment. And then the second use case that I heard from a large customer was I just want to get a snapshot of what my environments are doing during the day. And if a deployment has happened as expected, or if the environment was down for some reason. So I think that's where adding the heat map will be really helpful for them because they'll just be able to see at a glance like the environment's available. But I did add additional features about annotations of the environment's dashboard. So what I wanted to use this meeting for today is to get a brief update, Jake, from you on if there's any questions you have about the existing scope that you're working on, and for Hyan and I to help you on that if you need it. And then we can kind of talk about a new epic that I created and discuss more of a redesign effort, and hopefully have Hyana and you partner together on creating some prototypes for what a new environments dashboard could look like. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. So I'll pass it off to you to kind of, ask any questions that you may have, and then we can dive into the new epic.
Well, it's going to be short on my end. I actually don't really have any current questions. So if we want to just go right into the epic, and then maybe if anything comes along, I'll take note and we can address that later on.
Perfect. So I think the only thing that we have currently scheduled is this idea of expanding the number of projects that you can add to the dashboard.
Yeah.
So
yep. And
go ahead.
That's kind of going in with the pagination work, because for pagination we want to increase the number of projects to 20 on the dashboard. So that's currently ongoing, but pretty straightforward at the moment. So
perfect.
No questions on that.
That's what I like to hear. I always want the UX definition of done to be so explicit that you're just like, I can just do my job. That makes me happy. So this new epic that I created, I think probably last week, was taking a different direction from our other epics that we have on the environments dashboard. The other epics are more about organizing our backlog for the dashboard and kind of thinking about all the bugs and problems and features that people have requested. This is more about new features that I have received from customers about the jobs to be done that they're looking for. So in this epic, I have like a purpose that just gives a high level overview of the gaps that the environments dashboard has today, and then a goal statement. And to spend a little bit on the goal, users are looking at production environments, which from an ops perception, like the ops personas in GitLab typically are also looking at production environment. But here, the biggest difference is from a CI/CD view versus like an operations team view is that they want to coordinate and triage problems across multiple projects and teams versus just a single deployment event. So that action of wanting to see like a portfolio view is distinctly different with a release manager than like an ops persona. So today we have this really big coupling between an ops persona and the release manager persona in the environments dashboard. They're like the same dashboard pretty much. And we'll need to move forward with a different method of instrumenting the environments dashboard that's separate from the operations dashboard, because the tasks that people are trying to complete are very different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Okay. So some of the issues that I've started to validate with customers are ideas of interactions. So one that was particularly interesting is that I've had a call with a customer about pinning environment cards to the dashboard. So creating an interaction where they can anchor, any number of environments at all times, so they can always see what's the status of that particular production environment at the top of the dashboard. So what's interesting about this interaction is that there would be a pre-populated view then, from their perspective, like the operations dashboard would always have like that particular environment at the top and not just the added projects environments. What are your initial impressions of this request from a user?
I think from a UX perspective, it's a good call out. From a technical perspective, I see feasibility in there. So right now, the way we get environments onto the dashboard is by we basically just generate one single listing of environments and send that over an internal API to the dashboard page. So to build this out, we would need to create essentially two environments listings. One for pinned environments that is independent of the non-pinned environments. So anything that's in the generic environments list should not show up on the pin list. Otherwise, you'll get duplicate environments showing up. But that's just from a technical standpoint. From a UX standpoint, I think it's a good call out.
Perfect. And another feature that I saw come up time and time again after I started like evaluating how release managers particularly, or development team leads, like the contact that you sent over, Jake, he is definitely like the persona we're building these features for. And watching his interactions with the environments dashboard was a really cool thing, because he came back and said, well, it'd be really great to see like failed jobs of my protected environments already bubbled up to the top of the environments dashboard. So it's more like a GitLab does a surfacing for you. So the expectation would be, I go in the morning and I go to my environments dashboard as a release manager, and I have maybe my pinned environments at the top and they're color coded like they are today. And then the bar below that, the window below that, or the swim lane below that would be a list of failed environments or failed jobs on an environment, so I can triage them appropriately. This is a little bit trickier for me to like think about how we're going to instrument that, because anytime that I've surfaced problems inside of an application, it ends up being like a performance drain on the system, because it's constantly like pinging and looking for failed events and like pulling them in. So that might be something that we'll need to think about. But the intent here is to, how do we allow them to triage failed production issues from the environment's dashboard? So when I think about the goal, that's what we're trying to accomplish here. Mm-hmm. Any questions or thoughts?
I think it's just really a cool idea to make the dashboard smarter, so that when you go to the dashboard, you're already seeing the things that you're looking for and you're not digging around. So from just that perspective of making the dashboard smarter, I really like this issue. But yeah, in terms of the technical feasibility of it, I can see where constantly having to check every job of every project constantly, and then update, create like some updated data so that when you load the dashboard, it's there. I can see that being something that we have to consider from a um, from a performance perspective. And well, I wonder, because I know we have like this no, there's like the idea of like no artificial limits on the product side. And if this is like a higher tier thing, maybe the like the cost of whatever tier you're in will help with that performance issue if it's a cost thing. But I'm not entirely sure on that front either.
Yeah, that's helpful. We recently had emerged the product handbook MR that product managers are responsible for their performance of their pages on .com. And this is a really interesting like concept because I don't think I really have tools to see how my features are impacting performance today. So this is one of the issues that we'll want to create a POC for and test and kind of think about how is the data being retrieved. And maybe a part of this is that we only surface like it's a really small subset of data. Like you have to select only 5 environments that you want to watch this for, or we can create caps like that too to contain performance. But I also think it is important to think about the tier being an opportunity to contain some of that as well. Okay, so then another issue that I thought about that wasn't directly ever stated by a customer, but it was something that I'm pretty familiar with inside of analytics in general. And it's this idea of providing a pre-selected, curated layout for the environments dashboard. And I'm calling them environments dashboard templates. So let's say that you're a release manager and you're responsible for an entire group's deployments. Maybe you're only concerned with production environments, and we have a pre-populated template that you can select for your environments dashboard that's only filtered to production environments. And you still have the ability to pin things, but it's all production environments that were active in the last 24 hours. And maybe we have metrics tiles on there like average time to deployment or pipeline minutes used. It's like a pre-populated just view that people can select from, and maybe having 3 of those template views that people can toggle between. Like maybe one's production, maybe one is just path to production. So it's the swim lane view of your top 10 projects going through dev, QA, going through various stages that you get to specify. This is a common expectation from other tools, like the visualization of your deployments through their life cycle are really easy to see in VB Labs, really easy to see in Electric Cloud Flow. What are your thoughts on this idea? It is a little bit like half-baked, so don't worry about being like, Jackie, this is ridiculous. And I can add more context or more thoughts on it.
I like the idea of guiding the user, because right now when you open up the dashboard, there's just absolutely nothing there on the empty state, and you have to kind of figure out that you have to add a project and then what happens after you add a project. I think it's intuitive going from empty state to adding a project, but I think that what might not be intuitive to the user is why they should even be adding a project in the first place. Like, what is the benefit of even opening up this dashboard if you haven't looked at any documentation or anything? So maybe pre-populating a dashboard or having a template to pre-populate the dashboard is a good idea. And yeah, I was actually just thinking, like, what if we just like showed like a screenshot of like a populated dashboard as like an MVC at first and see if that changes anything. But I also don't think that showing like a picture is that great of an experience either. So yeah, I mean, yeah. What were you gonna say?
Speaking of that, maybe like we change the empty state first to be an image of like a template layout, and then we create some sort of guided tutorial that links to documentation, like that has a video, like how to add tiles to evaluate production deployments. And so like we guide people on how to create the template or create the dashboard. And then maybe the second iteration, third iteration is actually having a template to choose from.
That might be a good iterative approach to that, starting with an image and linking off to a video, and then after that iteration, going into making pre-populated templates.
We had a proposal from, don't remember which stage group, but it was Kevin, the designer, where he had this design proposal for with the empty state with an image. Because right now we do have like this illustration, but it was something, I don't think it got implemented, but I can look into it. There's already some investigation. And another thing is that when we talk about like pre-selecting things for the dashboard, and hearing what you're saying, I found very odd that right now we add projects to the environment. And then while I was prototyping today, the group environments, so aggregating everything at the group level, I think it makes sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, to instead of adding project, you will select which environments you want to show there. Is it production? Is it, review, whatever. And then you show which projects have those shared environments rather than adding groups, because that's part of my current struggle with the design is that I cannot organize things at the project level on, a higher level view, and also showing how these environments are shared across different groups. So it's a bit of a mess, this statement, but.
I love that you said that. So maybe like the abstraction here is that we allow people to add it to a stage in their pipeline. So maybe like one of the views is a swim lane view where it has like dev, QA, staging, development, or production, and they can drag particular environment tiles into each one of those swim lanes. And that would be a really great view from a deployment plan perspective. And it would allow people to see like their environments as they progress through those views.
Yeah, and I think it will be similar to what we briefly discussed, that proposal from Dimitri of changing the view to be more aligned with what we have for the issues board. It's difficult to talk about it, but I think we need some visualization for that, so we can see how this will look like.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. Good thoughts there. The other kinds of things that I heard from customers were around wanting to tie back to performance metrics from the environment's dashboard. So adding like maybe single metric tiles to the environment's dashboard on like deployment frequency that cross links into cycle time analytics in GitLab. So you can't do anything with the data there, but if you click on that metric, it'll pull you into the dashboard analytics view inside of GitLab. I also heard DORA metrics, wanting to see how people are performing on DORA on the environment's dashboard, because again, the jobs to be done for release manager is to see how are we deploying to production, how can we deploy faster, what are problems and bottlenecks that I need to resolve. So that's what this issue is focused on, is instrumenting a cross-link from this view into the value stream metrics at the project level. And the last thing I added to this epic was this idea of creating a global view for their instance. So there are some questions about using the environment's dashboard as a display point for people to like digital signage. So they would want to display the environment's dashboard on a TV screen in their SRE team's space. And today you really can't populate a global view. So some customers want to add a configuration option to say, I want the environment's dashboard to only have this view for every user. So that's everything from the new environment's dashboard redesign epic. This came out of validation in the jobs to be done differences and the opportunity canvas that I have open right now around supporting non-Kubernetes deployments. I intend to present the non-Kubernetes deployments opportunity canvas probably middle of next month. I'm looking for one more customer validation of a team lead persona in a small business, you know, like a SMB customer rather than an enterprise customer, just so that I have like the right, we have the right personas that we're addressing. But any thoughts or questions on that?
I'm going to go back, and I was relying on your screen share for a second there now that I'm on one monitor.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I will just, okay, I am back in my own world here. Okay. Yeah. Would you be willing to repeat what you said about presenting for the small businesses?
Yeah, so one thing that I want to make sure that I have as a part of our validation of all of this stuff is representation from the SMB market. So I need to have one more interview with a team lead or a different customer from a small business, you know, a small medium-sized business. So that's just me sourcing the right interview. And once we get that, we'll be able to move through solution validation and start like weighing these items and put them in design. Because what I don't want to do is take these issues and prematurely scope them from a design perspective if it doesn't necessarily meet the breadth of customers we're expecting.
I see.
Jackie, do you think it would be valuable to have some prototypes or something to show during the next interviews?
I would love that. Right now, what I'm doing is just kind of showing my environments dashboard and then talking through like, oh, this would have a pin up top that allows you to drag and drop 10 different tiles filling up the top 2 rows of the screen. And
it's your imagination.
Yeah. Imagination. so that's, yeah.
Okay.
It would be helpful for sure.
I'm gonna add a note here for myself so we can schedule some time to do, so I can do some ideation you can use for your next interviews. But then I need to prioritize this. That's for a different meeting, I guess. How to prioritize it against everything else.
Yeah, and that's where like why this isn't in design yet. I just wanted to use this opportunity to inform you all about what I'm hearing, because we do have a lot of like bugs in our current epics for the environments dashboard. But part of me is thinking like, well, if customers aren't even using it, but they're reporting these bugs, maybe it really just needs like a whole new like refactoring. The purpose of the dashboard is being informed by users differently. So we can improve the usage and not fix the bugs that we currently have if we can do a redesign, is my thinking, you know?
I wonder if, I think we mentioned this a couple of months back, if this view would, in a way, work the same way as what we're thinking for the environments at the group level. Or do you think it's really like at the instance where, you know, it's a very different persona? Because I'm seeing the environments at the group level as a list view of most of, you know, this capabilities, like seeing your last deployment, seeing, I don't know, what was the, everything that is happening for the production deployments on all your projects in the same group. So just kind of brainstorming here on how these two capabilities could overlap.
Super good call out. Group environments will allow us to remove tiles on the existing environments dashboard, right? Because today, each project gets added and then their corresponding environments gets added. If we shift the paradigm of the environments dashboard to be you're adding environments, individual environments, rather than projects, you would be able to visualize your application deployments by leveraging the sharing of production environments across the group. So that's how in my head I see them overlapping. And maybe maybe we find different queuing, like different visual queuing for a shared environment. Like maybe it has like a little linking icon or has some sort of indicator on the tile that this is something that's shared across multiple projects. Or maybe they're in their own little swim lane, or they have their own little, like we have swim lanes and we have rows. Maybe there's a row for shared environments and then individual project environments, and each of the swim lanes are the stages of the deployment. Like we can think through that, that layout. But in my head, they overlap because we reduce the amount of tiles that are shown on the environments dashboard. We're making it easier for users to see their application deployment. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. It's a more focused view. If you're just interested in, here's everything that's happening in my group without having to go through all the configuration or whatever, pagination. And, okay,
totally.
Cool.
Where I see sharing group environments be really impactful is in the index view. So like that environments page, how do we want to visually indicate that this environment at a project level is also at the group level? You know, like how you have like labels, and labels of the project are indicated project label, but I don't know like the breadcrumbing of that. Because like if I was to click project labels, if labels are always stored at the group and then they indicate project level, maybe this is a case where we also have environments at the group in the side panel, and that's where we have people manage environments from here on out, and we remove the index page at the project level. But that's kind of strange if it's just an environment in the project. So we will need to think through that interaction of the environment's index page.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions that's from the prototyping phase, that when I look at the environment, project environments and the index, and then you go to the detail view and you even see some different information there. It's a bit tricky to kind of make this association when you're only seeing one item. And this is, I don't know, my latest deployment or my latest past pipeline for production, whatever. So it's, let's see. I have more. I don't have questions right now. I don't have answers.
Yeah, totally not. Totally not expecting you to. I did see your updated link to the sharing of production environments across the group. So I think that will be a great thing for us to scope and think about. I think we have 10 more minutes, Ayana, if you want to go through those prototypes with us here. I mean, or Jake, I can give you back time. Up to you.
I love this conversation, and if there's prototypes that Ayana wants to share, I'm all for staying and checking them out.
You're so good.
Thank you, Jake. Let me share my screen. I hope I'm sharing the right desktop. Yeah, right? You can see the Figma.
Yeah, like a dancing cat.
Yeah, so actually, I'm sending you also the, oh my goodness, Zoom, why do you do this to me? I just want to share the link with you here. So you can also leave your comments, because I actually left a bunch of questions in this file. Anyway, so this is my current prototype for environments at the group level. So I added here an option for operations on the sidebar. So ideally, or at least in my head, we keep consistency with the navigation. So we add operation and then you go operation environments, but for the group. If you don't have anything, for some reason, you see an empty state. Right now, even on project environments, we don't have an illustration for empty state. So I think we have we can be creative here, and also think about the copy for this text for this section. And then this is where I am right now when I look at how the shared environments will work. In the issue description, we say that we're gonna consider an environment shared when they have the same name in being used in different projects. So everything that is production on, in this example, GitLab or pajamas will show here, or review. And then in this view, I pretty much just added, don't look at it, it's still low fidelity, don't judge me. So pretty much the same information from the project level. So this is your last deployment or your last pass pipeline for review on GitLab, and same for pajamas. This icon would show, yeah, go ahead.
I think the only thing here is I'd like to indicate somewhere that these are like projects, like under the review, like having some sort of header or indicator that like these are your projects that you're looking at. Because today, like that could look like a subgroup to me, you know, like looking at that icon and.
Yeah. So make it a bit more visible that what you're looking at is at a different level. Okay. And then
hierarchy, right?
Yeah, and then this is like super low fidelity because I was playing around with it and it took me so long to put this together because I don't have all the components on Figma. But I have some questions here. For example, in the project level, we have some sort of a table and then you have multiple headers, right? So you have a header here that says, this is the job, or this is the pipeline, this is when it expires. And I did not here because I was just too lazy. But I was wondering if this exact information is relevant to users at this level, if they want to see the exact same info in the UI here that they see at the project level. And if it would be interesting to show like the pipeline, this is pass or not, you know, because there's different views from the project overview, environment project overview, and environments detail view. Also saying different action buttons. So.
I wonder if there's a way to simplify this here and not have so much information. Like maybe we can just add, like here's what I would like this view to be really clean, and that we give people the opportunity to link off to their project view. But I also think that if we're allowing people to create new environments here and say, I want to share this environment in these other projects, the detailed view might actually be warranted. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I agree with your thoughts there, Jackie.
And then as far as like, there isn't any code at the group level again, right? So the actions should probably be very limited to what they're actually able to do here. Like would they actually be able to stop each of the production deployments from each of the individual projects at this view? And maybe this is where like we have a collapse here, and maybe this is just like a grouping mechanism. The intent though is for them to actually share these environments. Like I want them to be able to actionably say, yes, stop all deployments to this environments from this view. But I'm worried about having only one actioning icon when really there's like separate projects contributing to the same URL. Like each of those projects are going to have their own pipelines. And this is just the mechanism that we're like visually indicating that these are related inside of GitLab. Like we're not aggregating pipelines from all the projects into a single environment. We're just indicating that these are the same, this is the same target URL that your projects are contributing to. So I'm worried about having pipeline information at this view.
Yeah, I see your concern there. Because I think if this stop button is really stopping all pipelines from reaching that environment, but we're only indicating this one pipeline here, it could make that this stop button indicates to the user that it only stops this pipeline.
Right.
Let me show quickly how it works here, because I think, just see if I also understand. Oops, not this, actually, I want the operation environments. Because in a way, what we would be showing at the prototype, the group level, it's really like just the latest one in review, right?
Right.
So what you're saying is that this here would apply like to all the review on GitLab, not only this,
Right.
what is it? No, see what you mean.
Right. It's applying to the entire environment.
The entire environment inside of GitLab. Yeah. So I'm just worried about having pipeline information on this group view when pipelines are very specific to the project, right?
Do we, is this the view where we want to be able to stop an entire environment? Or do we want to be able to just add some more friction to prevent someone from mistakenly stopping all deployments or stopping all pipelines to an environment?
It's a good question. So my initial thoughts of having group environments was allowing people to aggregate for their application, right? So like this review app, and maybe it's only production environments, Hayana. Maybe that's why like I'm getting so stuck on the review pieces, because review apps are very, very Kubernetes, very dynamic environments perspective. Like review apps particularly are dynamic environments. So you'll have hundreds of thousands of those environments created and stopped at any given time. So I think that this could be like part of why I'm getting so stuck on that. But let's say that we're only looking at production environments for each of these projects. Mm-hmm. And you have a group production environment. And under that group production environment, you have 5 projects that contribute to that application experience. So in this view, this doesn't tell me that GitLab and Pajamas are contributing to my application environment. So I wonder if there's a way to like show that my application in production is represented by this URL, and each of these environments feed into that, or each of these projects feed into that one project for that, or each of these projects feed into that one production experience for my customer.
So you would have, this would be like the tree or whatever. I'm just gonna freestyle here, like here, and then you're gonna have your main production, like your umbrella, if it is being.
And maybe the MVC is we only focus on sharing production environments, and then we can talk about sharing review apps, because mechanically, I don't know if we can actually share a dynamic environment like that. So I don't think review apps, this will be relevant for review apps. But maybe dev, like I could see a world where we have one target URL for a dev environment and multiple projects are contributing to that.
Yeah, and staging and
totally
and such. Yeah.
This might be something that we should talk to Marin about, Hayana, because I think he'll have a really great perspective on like GitLab.com. If he is fed from distribution, from runner, from all of these sub projects into that one customer experience, how are we wrangling all of those changes, and how would you want to see that in this view? Because in my head, like he would be a really great person to like kind of test this thought with. But when I validated this with customers before, the intent was to be able to physically like say, when I click new environment, I'm going to name this production, and this is going to be my production URL for GitLab, for Pajamas, for Runner, and then that environment shows on all of the projects as a target that they can then deploy their YAML file to.
Do we care about deploy boards at this level?
No, because deploy boards are Kubernetes focused.
Oh, yes.
And this is really about, I mean, eventually we'll want to support, we'll have to work with configure about supporting multiple clusters, you know, like sharing clusters across the projects. But that's like a configure thing, I think.
If we're showing like a top level environment here, would it be a good user experience to show the environment and then have a drop down that opens up like the projects that contribute to that environment, and then under those projects, each one has their own list of actions, so that way you could
I like that.
you could stop the deployment for a specific project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this makes it seem like each project still has their own pipelines, their own relevant actions, but then you're visually indicating that they are all feeding into the same URL.
Yeah, so like a hierarchy of sorts. Yeah.
Quickly do this as we speak. This is going to be a lot of ifs and whatever. Come on. Oh, forgot. Something like this. Whatever. This is just it's a mental note for myself, but to see that there is a hierarchy.
Yeah, that makes more sense to me.
I would even maybe get rid of that that branch name. Yeah, so doing something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can have some sort of configuration here or whatever, and you can other options.
Because today in GitLab, customers can put the same URL in each of their individual projects. It just shows up as a different environment. So that's what we're trying to solve for, is that you have the same URL, like the same actual physical environment that you're deploying to, and visually being able to indicate that in GitLab. Does that make sense? And I think like this gives you that picture.
Yeah.
Okay. We are at time. I have to get to another meeting, but thank you all so much. This was so good. I love talking to you about this stuff. We'll talk soon.
Right.
Everyone, bye.